Hello everybody, I'm Katie Knight and welcome to episode 2 of season 7 of Can You Put Me on Guest List. How is everyone? I hope everybody's doing well. In this episode of the podcast, we sit down with one of dance music's most influential figures, Mark Knight, yes, another Knight here on the podcast, at the brand new Toolroom headquarters in London, fresh off the label's second consecutive win as Beatport's Label of the Year. With 2 decades at the helm of Toolroom and a career that's conquered both the DJ booth and the studio, Mark offers his uniquely informed take on one of the industry's hottest debates, the DJ-producer divide. Can a DJ thrive today without producing music? Do studio-only artists lack the instinct to move a crowd? And is it still possible to become a household name by mastering just one craft? We unpack the thinking behind Toolroom's new creative hub, explore what it really takes to build a successful label in the age of streaming, and ask whether the rise of algorithms has changed the game for discovering music that actually works on a dance floor. From career turning points to advice to the next generation, this is a conversation packed with honest reflections, hard-earned wisdom, and the kind of industry insight you only get from someone who's truly done it all, like Mark. So welcome back to Can You Put Me on Guest List. This season is powered by TrackStack, the platform that helps you transform into a sustainable electronic music professional. On TrackStack, you can streamline your demo and promo workflow, take your tracks to a new standards, as well as sell your music expertise on your terms. The platform is super easy to use, so if you want to give it a go, you can use the promo code CUPMOG, that's every letter of Can You Put Me on Guest List, for 10% off for life. This is Can You Put Me on Guest List with Mark Knight.
Do you know, I actually got my first job in music because I said that I was related to you.
Really?
I swear.
No way.
Yeah.
I was surprised you got the gig. I was like, fuck that. CV's excellent, but it was all good until you told us that. No,
I did. For Amnesia, I did work experience with them, and I'd put on it that I was related to you, and they gave me the job.
Oh, I'm sure it wasn't that. That's mental.
Yeah, it's funny.
Well,
now here we are.
And here we are.
How are you?
I'm all right. Good. Are we rolling now? Then?
We are rolling.
Oh, we're rolling now.
Rolling.
Right,
we're
off.
rolling.
We're off and running.
It's really nice to see the new space.
It's nice to finally be in the new space, you know. Be 15 years overdue, but we're here now. Better late than never.
What was the thoughts behind the relocation and also the studios, which look amazing?
I think every business needs a shot in the arm of adrenaline now and again, and a new impetus, a new energy, and having a new environment always creates that. And it really plays into the strengths of what we're about. And our biggest asset as a business is the understanding of how to generate content, how to make music. You know, that's really where our strengths lie. 22 years in the game, waiting for demos to turn up in the post.
Yeah.
It's not sophisticated enough. We know what we want. We know what we want from our artists. And it makes more sense to get people in and say, look, this is the record we want, or play us the music you're working on, play us what records you've got. You know, sometimes it's a case of like, I like the top line from that, I like the backing track there, amalgamate it, or task people with an idea that you know that they can deliver, and then you're invested in that project from the ground up. And that's a far better way to A&R records than sending the demo and go, I don't like it. They don't want to hear it, I don't want to say it. So you take and you alleviate all that out of the equation, and you work on records together from the ground up. You can shoot content, you can build a plot around the records from day one, from its inception. So being in the middle of East London in Shoreditch, there's no better place to house that as an idea, and here we are.
Yeah, I love the fact of having a content room.
We've
I think
got a
that's so
content room.
cool.
Yeah, but more importantly, we've got 4 incredible studios to make great content.
Yeah.
And like I say, that really is our forte, our strength. You know, and we've got some incredible guys working here on varying various abilities that we can place different artists with that suit their requirements. So it is now the Music Factory.
Nice, big changes.
Big changes, you know, I say probably 15 years late, but...
Another big thing in the world of Toolroom
Yep.
is that you have just won for the 2nd year Label of the Year at the Beatport Awards.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Another huge milestone for us, and something we're incredibly proud of. You know, I think our business was always about doing well on Beatport. We've always tried to stay true to that as an ethos. Obviously Spotify changed the game hugely, and still probably our biggest partner in terms of scale and financials. But I think the integrity, what Beatport gives you, is what drives us and what we built our business around. To still be at the top of our game 22 years later is everything for us, you know, because we are selling to our peers, our friends and our fans. You know, it's not about getting placement in different playlists. It's about selling to DJs and genuinely bona fide fans of what we do.
Yeah.
So if we're still at the top of our game 22 years later, there's no bigger compliment to the team and everyone involved in Tourum.
No, it's huge, really massive, really cool.
Yeah.
What do you think are the perfect ingredients for a record label to stay why can't I say that word?
I mean,
consistently.
If you say it, I'll answer it.
Consistently successful in 2025.
I think the most important thing any label should have is a sound. That underpins everything. You know, whether you go back and look at labels throughout history, whether you go back right the way back to Motown or Def Jam or all of those labels, they have a sound. And the biggest compliment in terms of A&R and us as a business is that we have a sound. People write records and say, I've written this record, it sounds very Tourum. That's the bedrock, that's the foundation of everything. If you consistently have that musical narrative in what you do, that is the way to have longevity, because you stand for something. You're not about chasing trends, you're not about what's happening tomorrow, because you'll never catch up with trends. Trends will always beat you. It's about setting trends and owning a trend and being prepared to stick through that, through thick or thin. Go, okay, it's not our time at the moment. We're not at the front of the queue right now, but we stand for this and we own this sound. And our time will come. It all goes in circles in music. And we've stayed consistent with that, you know, and I think it's about having parameters in what you stand for. You know, we can't do the same record over and over again, but we can move within a certain realm of music and do that very well. And what ties that together is the production quality, the amount of assets the record has in terms of hooks, and making sure that wherever we go musically, all those things sound consistent. So they're the things that tie it together. You know, it's like when you put the radio on and go, why does that sound very Motown? You know, to the layperson, you can't explain why, but it's that consistence of sonics and hooks and great songs and all those things that make that stand for something. And we've endeavoured since day one to maintain that. And I think if you're starting a label now, or if you have a label and you want longevity, you need to stand, put your flag in the ground and say, we stand for this and we're going to be the best in the world at doing this thing.
How has the rise of streaming and algorithm-driven discovery changed the way a record label works?
Well, I try not to worry too much about that, because that's not in my hands, you know, to a degree. Like I say, our label was built around the basis of selling to DJs and fans of house music, you know, and if things go on to be bigger than that, then great. But I think if you try to pitch there straight away, pitch to a different audience, it changes your objective and your view on the way you sign music, because you can't kid people into saying this is a hit. You can't kid the kids, you just can't do it, you know. But if you grow a record, let's say Fill My Needs, right? Let's take one of the most commercial records we ever released. Now, when we signed that, we never thought, this is a commercial record. We thought, this is just a good club record in its own right. And when it grows from that place and it has that genuine authenticity and it goes on, they're the records that matter to us, you know, not the records you can't skip the queue, and we never want to do that. If they're going to do great things and they go into a bigger play, then great, happy days. But we don't write records, we don't put out records that go for that market. You know, we try to do things with legitimacy and authenticity, all of those words that matter to us, and if they go on to be bigger things, but we don't sign records for playlists. That's not our outlook.
Yeah. Because I've read or heard in an interview before that you've said that there's a lack of anthems in the scene. Do you still think that's the case in 2025?
100%. Hence why we're here with all these studios.
Yeah.
That's our role and our duty to try and fulfil that. Because you're right. The issue is now is there isn't enough money in music. Is the reality as an artist? You know, even myself. You know, it doesn't matter if you're me or Coldplay. I guess the split's 80-20 between live and recordings. You've got to do the 20% of recordings to get to the 80% in live. But not enough emphasis is being put on that. It's like, let's just have some content just to fulfill that as a marketing exercise. But could you go a bit further? Could you really stretch yourself? Could you really push the boundaries of what you can do as an artist so that this scene has longevity? It has a backbone of great records we can go back to and say, oh, do you remember 2025, all of those records? Now, not enough people are doing that, and that's, you know, what we're trying to do in this new facility is fill that gap with great club records, you know, not commercial, just great club records. Most of all of the greats were never the objective or the plan when you started to write those records. But this write a hit. You can't sit down and write hits. You can write great records with depth, with great musicianship, with great club credentials, and if you can amalgamate and fuse all that together, then they're the records that hopefully go on to be anthems that you can look back on. But that is definitely there is definitely a gap in that right now. There is 100%, and you know, we want to step up and have a go at delivering them.
Because do you think that a DJ to survive in 2025 needs to be writing music as well, or do you think that bookings and music production are not linked?
I think they're 100% linked. Look, you could be the best DJ in the world, right? You can have all the skills, all the tricks, but how's anyone going to know? How are you going to amplify that message globally? And I think the best way to do it is to write music. That is your calling card globally to what you stand for, you know. And if there's a direct correlation between the music you're making and the music you're playing, then the narrative is consistent. You know, that's what you stand for. Yeah. That's your sound. You know, you make it, you play it, and you stand behind it. So, as far as I'm concerned, I don't know too much about the whole, you know, social media culture and let's build a profile through that. I don't understand that. I don't want to understand that. You know, I'd rather not know. I'd rather stick to what I stand for and I believe in, and that authenticity of being an artist that you don't have to be all things. You know, I think this is where the confusion lies. Just because you're making records, look, it doesn't mean to say you have to be all the component parts of that. Like, I'm probably the worst keyboard player in the world, and I'll put my hand, but that doesn't mean to say I can't get a keyboard player and say, look, I need these chords, give me an inverse, give me some options, or I need, you know, a sax top line, come in and write me some hooks. But you don't have to be all things. You can be a great ideas person as a producer, because ostensibly that's what a producer is. They have to have the ideas. They have to know what the finished product looks like. So you can do that by getting all the best people in to realise your idea. But I think the two things should be in tandem with each other. Someone who stands for something musically and is prepared to back themselves, because that's a cost. That, you know, that you can't do that well for free. But you've got to invest in yourself. It's a part of the business. It's part of the assets you make. They're your assets, aren't they? Really, as an artist. So you need to be prepared to invest in that and put your head above the parapet, and not just grab something from Splice, or, you know, to be prepared to go, okay, I'm really backing myself in this by making great music and then going out and playing great music. And I think if you've got both things on song, for me, that's the artist.
But what about if it's like the other way around, for like a producer that hasn't had much experience, or maybe doesn't feel comfortable like DJing or playing in front of a crowd?
Yeah.
Do you think, like, if a producer doesn't have that experience, do you think they find it hard to find that perfect sound, or know what will or will not work on the dance floor?
Listen, you only know by experience. You're going to go out there and make mistakes. You know? Yeah. I remember playing this record actually at Amnesia, which I believe you got a job there once.
Yeah, apparently. I don't know how.
You know, a whole nother story. I remember playing that record at Amnesia, and when it was a demo, and it completely cleared the dance floor.
It cleared the dance floor.
It weren't great. But, you know, I was like, I believe in this record. And these are all things you learn from, you understand, you know, that's what makes you as a DJ. You can't shortcut that. You know, my first gig was on a Tuesday night in a pub in Maidstone, playing to 5 people. And I let records run out and I panicked. But I did it every Tuesday, and I got to realise how I'd make the night work, and if I played one wrong record, they were off. Do you know what I mean? Keeping 5 people in a room is a challenge, let me tell you. Keeping 5,000 people in a room and they've all paid a lot of money, not so much of a challenge. But if you can learn through just experience and giving it a go, that's how you get your stripes and how you grow as a DJ. But unfortunately, there is no shortcut. And you know, it doesn't, just because you're a great producer, it doesn't necessarily give you instantly the qualifications to be a good DJ. You've got to go out and learn it. You've got to graft it. You've got to. It's all psychology. DJing, look, mixing 2 records together. I could teach my mum to do that now. That's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. Programming a night with a flow based on the mood of a room, a whole different ballgame, and that comes through experience. So if you're not great at first, we all weren't great at first. I was terrible. You know, that's part of it. No one starts great. You get better by experience and throwing yourself in it. So unfortunately, you just got to
do it.
Just got to do it and ride it out.
So these Tuesdays, your first nights
yes.
DJing.
Yeah.
Were you producing music before that, or were you just DJing?
No, I was just DJing at that point. You know, I came very much from being an absolute fanatic of buying music. That was my first love. And this was going back, I think my first gig was 92, 93. Something like that. So yeah, and I've been buying records since I was 10. I was obsessed with buying music. You know, given any opportunity to play people records, whether it's making a tape from them back when I was a kid. You know, it was. I guess that was the real precursor to being a DJ. Is that fundamental love of acquiring music and seeking out music and playing to people because you loved it. But yeah, I come from the background of being a DJ first, and understanding what works, what doesn't work, you know, and understanding how, you know, in terms of arrangements and what records to make for the right time of night. I learnt through, you know, throwing myself in the deep end, being a DJ, and then went on to learn how to make music from there.
Do you think that's the easiest way around, like starting as a DJ and then going on as a producer, or producing first and then going into DJ?
You know, from my perspective, I think it's that way around. DJing first, understanding in situ what works, you know, because you can take all that knowledge of like, I know all these facets within a record, all these elements has a translation in situ, you know, in real time. So you understand how much energy to put in a record. All of those factors you can't learn. It goes that way round. I mean, but that's just me. That's how I learned. I learned from playing for many, many years before I got behind a computer and go, right, okay, now I need to really up the game and take all these ideas I've got and start putting them out. And all of that, a lot of that had come through experience and playing at gigs and knowing, look, this kind of thing really works, you know, this is how I should be making it. And that was the kind of background and backbone to my production. And
when was that point, and why did that happen when you decided, you know what, I want to start making my own music?
Good question. I guess I think the first thing I ever made was about 1997. We sampled Roy Ayers Running Away. I remember getting a distribution deal through Bobby and Steve. They said, we're distributing. And I thought that was it. I was like, right, Mum, Dad, you know, the house is safe, we're all good, you know, we've made it. And it sold about, I don't know, 150 copies. So, but yeah, I had all these ideas that I just wanted to get out, and I just had to get into an environment that allowed me to express myself, to really realise all of these things I had swimming around in my head. And then again, it's just sheer continuity and practice. And I was very lucky from a very early point in my career. I was working with Dave Lee's engineer, a guy called Kevin. Me and Dave, I was a resident at a club for Kiss at Hanover Grand called Independence every Friday night. It's a really big residency to have in London, and I was playing alongside Eric Murillo, Full Intention, Joey Negro, week in, week out, and got to meet all these guys and become really good friends with all of them. And myself and Dave just got on like a house on fire. And I was like, Dave, I've got all these ideas, played with demo. He said, look, they're good, they're just not well executed. They're the right ideas, you just haven't executed them well. So he said, you should work with my engineer, Kevin. So myself and Kevin started a bit of a production partnership. And the first record I ever released proper come out on Zeb Records on Dave's label. And we were literally around the corner from where we were in Essex Road. So yeah, it's kind of full circle. I'm literally a stone's throw away. And I was working in the studio loads. We got to the point where Dave wanted to move back home and I was sharing the studio with Dave. So from a really early age, I was in an environment where I could go into sessions with Dave, and I did. I used to sit in a session and watch how he did it. I was like, right, that's how, you know, and I need to be doing it. I absorbed all of that. I was very lucky just to, by osmosis, you know, I picked up all of these great ideas, and Dave's just a genius in terms of his kind of, he's got this encyclopedic memory of music, and we both come from a very similar place, and the way, you know, the pair of us producers, we have points of reference that we bring, like the chords from this, the strings from that, and put them all together, and then it becomes a new thing. And I was like, this suits me, because I wasn't musically trained, so it wasn't like I could just sit there and play some chords and then we could build around that. You know, I had to use, my USP was my knowledge and all the things that I'd bought and listened to in my past. You know, that still is my biggest strength. My biggest asset is my library of knowledge of music that I've been invested in and a fan of since day one. You know, I'm very lucky to grow up through two huge cultural kind of revolutions with hip hop and then electronic music, and lived through all of that and just buzzed all the way through it in terms of all of this new music. You know, like, oh my God. So, you know, all my strengths lie in my history, and that was very much what Dave had, and I thought, this is how I can grow and become a producer. These are my strengths, you know. It's not like I can sit there and I can write brilliant melodies or chords. I got all these informational records that I bought, and yeah, that was the way I kind of grew as a producer.
Was there like a turning point where being both a DJ and a producer made a difference?
Yeah, I think when you start to have like big records, for example, when we did, myself and Martin, when we did Strings of Life in 2005, was it 2000? Between 2003 and 2005, we also did a record on Tourum called In the Beginning. There were the two big anthems by Beatport that summer, and that was the catalyst. That really lit the touch paper of our careers. You know, I was doing the gigs in town and whatever, and then you start to have big records that people are playing all over the world, and then the diary goes nuts. So I think having that foundation of a real kind of organic growth within DJing, it wasn't like you were in your bedroom one day, then you had a massive hit the next day, and then all of a sudden you're playing at all the main festivals. You know, I'd really grafted it out from Tuesday night to local residencies in London, residencies in the UK, then you have that big record, then you're touring globally and it's off. So there is a point that those two things really align and it grows quickly.
So do you think that if you maybe hadn't have chosen to produce as well, your career would have been a lot different to it is?
100%. I can't even imagine not producing it. They're so intrinsically linked in terms of success. One always drives the other, and I have to fulfill them both. You know, I've got, of 22 years of releasing music on tour, pretty much one a month, every month.
One a month?
For 22 years.
Wow.
So I've not really run out of ideas yet. So I need a vehicle and a platform to allow me to do that, because that's the other component in terms of my success is the label. You know, you've got all three. You're a DJ and you're making music, and you have your own platform to release your own music. And if you get all those three things right, then you're in a good chance of doing all right with it.
So if you're releasing one record a month, how do you find that balance between being on the road and being in the studio?
Never sleeping. No, I haven't slept since 1997.
Really?
No. No, it's I don't know, I'm very driven as a person. So you just make time, you make it work. You make it work by all means necessary, and balancing that. And the bit that's most important is having a family life. That's number one. That's sacrosanct. And then everything else works around it. You just make it work. You know, there's no minutes off, there's no time off. I don't sit on a plane and go, oh, just sit and watch a film. I just go, right, let's go.
Do you make music on the plane?
All the time. Any second I've got, I'm either listening to music, making music, working. There's no minutes off. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
From the second I get up, the second I go to bed, I'm on. So you just make it work. You know, if you want it.
Yeah, I guess that's it. It's like anything. If you really want something, just work for it.
What you put in, you're going to get out.
Yeah.
So if you don't, you won't.
Yeah.
Simple as that. But I love the buzz and the adrenaline of constantly being on. I love that. I'd really struggle without that. That drives me. You know, that when I've got a million things on the go, that I really buzz from that.
Yeah.
So it's never a chore. It's always, it excites me, invigorates me more than anything.
It doesn't feel like you're going to work.
Never.
That's the best.
Why not? Listen, you only get one go at this. Why would you not put yourself in that situation?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because only you dictate your own outcome.
Yeah.
No one says to you, oh, do you know what? You could have a really exciting, important life, exciting, invigorating life, but you're going to have to just do a shit job. Said no one ever, only you to yourself. So if you want that as an outcome, you just got to go and make that work. Now it's not easy. It's not an easy thing, but if you want it and you've got to run. Someone said to me, I've got to run through that wall to make it out. I'll just run through that wall. No stress. Let's go.
Yeah.
So why not? Why not have that as a life? So it's a lot of work, but there's a huge amount of reward to that. So whatever you put in, you're going to get out.
We spoke a little bit about this at the beginning of the podcast about producers that, probably don't have so much experience DJing. What advice would you give, or what do you think is the way forward for producers that really don't feel comfortable in a DJ booth?
Go and get a residency, build up your own audience, build up something that you're comfortable with. Start your own swell, start your own thing around people that will make you feel more at home with that, being in that environment. Build a little small, go to someone owns a bar or a club, say, can I put a club night on? I'll come and play for free, I'll bring my own crowd, and build up your own experience,
Yeah.
Get stuck in, roll up your sleeves, and then when you have that confidence in that environment, then you can start to scale it, and if your music is doing well, then at least you'll have that grounding that you're not going into these huge environments without that knowledge. I remember doing a gig years ago with Avicii, God rest his soul. It was about his second or third gig he'd ever done. It was we were playing this massive show in Holland. There's about 10,000 people there. And I come on, I played, and I finished. And then he was on after me, and all this big razzmatazz and whatever. And then he just started the record from the beginning. It's like about a minute and a half intro. Everyone was like, it was like the biggest anticlimax ever. But he didn't know because he'd never done it. He'd gone, he'd stratospherically kind of gone from doing things as Tim Bergling, sending a lot of demos, to having this huge hit and then being put in that environment, and you're not ready for it. There is a real art to being able to make that environment work. And if you don't know, you just don't know. Do you know what I mean? But you don't go, like, wait for a minute, oh, hang on, press play. You need to start with a bang because 10,000 people are dying to hear you play. So, that was a real insight into, like, you need to know what you're doing first, really. I mean, he obviously learned very quickly, but I think if you're not comfortable, build an environment that you can learn from, that is on your terms.
Yeah. If you were a new artist in 2025,
yep.
Obviously there's so many things to think about, but what would you put most of your focus on?
Being true to yourself. It starts there. Fundamentally, I think that's the biggest problem I see with artists not knowing who they are. Because if you don't know who you are, how can you build on that? How does that create a stable foundation to a career? You've got to know what you stand for and be comfortable with it. Don't worry about all the noise and what else is going on around it. Just be comfortable and true to you. Because if you are and you resonate that belief, then people will follow you. If you try and chase it, then you're already on the back foot. You need to know what you're comfortable in playing, what your sound is. Don't worry what's happening, the hype thing, because in 2 weeks' time, that'll have changed and you'll miss it. Go, look, I love tribal music, I play it, I live and breathe it. Then do that. Okay, if it's not the hottest thing right now, I mean, if someone said to me 5 years ago, Afro House would be the biggest thing in the world, I would have probably laughed. Do you know what I mean? But look what it is now. Who knows what's next? I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you know, someone's out there, someone's sat there now being true to themselves, that's doing something with integrity and legitimacy, they're going to be the next big thing, because you know they emanate and resonate what they believe in. And I think that's the most important thing, is get comfortable with being you, and then get fucking good at being you.
I think that just goes back to what you were saying before as well. Like you need to love what you're doing and enjoy what you're doing. So
exactly, I cannot, you know, and I know it happens, I could not for all the money in the world, right, stand behind the decks and play something I didn't like. There's not an amount of money you could pay me to do.
Yeah.
Well, maybe there is. But no, but in all seriousness, I don't know how you can have a career with making music that you're doing for money, because I don't know. I never got into music for money. It was just it was a byproduct. I still see it as a bit of a hobby. Do you know what I mean? That pays me.
Yeah.
It was never driven with a financial outcome. It was all driven just purely by love, and I think that has to underpin everything, and stay true to that. And if you do that, you're always doing things right.
Yeah, it must be a horrible feeling, like going out there and like, you know, not playing something that you like and just
jumping up and down behind the desk.
Oh.
And I think it happens. I think we all know it happens.
Yeah, it definitely happens.
I mean, for a lot of money, good luck to do whatever. But for me, you know, just do things from the heart. And if you do that, you're always doing it right.
Yeah. Okay, I know we don't have much time, so
No.
I've got like 2 last questions
That's
for
fine.
you. Okay, so one is we play this game on the podcast.
Right, okay.
It's called Pass the Question.
Right.
So every guest passes a question on to the next guest.
Right.
The previous guest was Hiroka Yamamura from Chicago, and her question for you is, how do you help a local DJ?
How do you help a local DJ? It's a very good question. Well, we actually built a thing called the Tourum Academy, which is a platform that is globally available to all local DJs. And it's our way of giving back, our way of creating connection between aspiring DJs and producers and a big label. It's a pathway, it's a gateway and a career opportunity if you sign up and you choose a course that's relevant to where you are. We have a whole suite of courses from absolute beginner to production masterclasses, one-to-ones. You know, wherever you think you fit on that journey, we offer different classes and a pathway into what we are doing at the label. You know, we very much modelled it on the football academy system, where we're trying to build and nurture talent that affords us longevity as a brand, because that is our job in A&I, is to consistently find new talent. And this is a pathway and a gateway to come and get on board to what we're doing here at the label. And if you're good enough, it's not a given, far from it, you've got to work really hard. And it's probably the same ratio as what it is in football cameras. It's the 1% of the 1% that make it. But if you are the 1% of the 1%, welcome on board.
There you go. That's how you help your local artists.
There it is, for a small fee.
What is your question for the next?
Oh
the next
God!
It doesn't even have to be music related. It could be anything.
Oh,
Somebody asked, how often do you have a pedicure once?
well, that now for me, that not very often. In fact, don't go down there. I mean, I actually think I need a blacksmith more than it is. That's probably more appropriate. I mean, I've still got footballer's feet. Okay, right. If you could work with any producer, dead or alive, production hero, like for me, would be Jam and Lewis, right? I mean, I don't get starstruck. I just don't. It's not a thing. But I think if I went into a room with Jam and Lewis, and I'd just go to pieces, I'd fall apart. If you could work with anyone, do a collaboration with any producer throughout any genre, it doesn't have to be in electronic music, it can be across the board, who would it be? And if you were doing a vocal track, like for me, probably Sade would be top of it.
Nice.
Who would do the top line?
Good question.
Okay.
And finally, because the podcast is called Can You Put Me on Guest List?
Yes.
Do you have a guest list rule?
No, I mean, it's very fair. I mean, I literally have to pay my mates to come out. You know, I'd love to have a full guest list. You know, that would be quite flattering, to be honest. No, I don't really. Look, if you're a friend or... do you know what I like? I like people who really chance their arm and they're like saying, I've never met you, but was there any chance you could put me on the guest list? And just for the sheer bravado of it, fuck it, why not? You're on.
So if anyone ever asks you,
yeah, I bet,
there you go. You're gonna have full guest list now.
Listen, life's about if you don't ask, you don't get. You know,
I agree.
And those people who